Hi, I'm Mike Quincy. I'm here at Consumer Reports Auto Test Center, and I'm standing next to our 2024 Lincoln Nautilus, which we bought for our test program. Just a subtle reminder, we buy all the cars that we test anonymously. We don't take any freebies from manufacturers, so we make sure that we get a sample that's just like what everyone else buys. The base price for our car came to $54,750. We added only one option package for $5,775, which brings BlueCruise hands-free driving for 4 years, hands-free liftgate, a big glass roof, a 14-speaker audio system, and heated second-row seats. We also added some special white paint for $750, and the hybrid engine kicked in another $1,500. With the $1,395 destination fee, the total came to $64,170. So if you don't get that option package, you actually get BlueCruise as standard equipment, but it only works for about 90 days. And after that, it's a paid subscription. The Nautilus is a few inches longer and wider, but also lighter than the model it replaces, the Lincoln MKX. It gets a turbocharged and hybrid 4-cylinder engine and a continuously variable transmission, makes about 310 horsepower. So one of the things that you immediately notice about the Nautilus is these door handles. They come way out from the body. So when it comes to actually opening the door, there's these little sensors inside the handle that you just kind of give a little squeeze and it opens the door. It's different than an actual latch opening. So one of the first things you notice about the Nautilus's interior is a whole bunch of screen. You've got this screen on top of the dashboard that runs the whole width, as well as another screen right here. This is a touch screen. When I first sat in this car, the first thing I thought of was it's a lot like a Toyota Prius. The steering wheel seems so far removed from the instrument cluster. In most cars, you've got a round steering wheel. This wheel is kind of oblong because you need to be able to see all the information that's spread across here. There's also, like the Prius, all this wasted space. It's got this huge shelf. It's like, well, what do you do with something like that? But as we'll get into, the functionality of it is a lot different than the wow factor. So one of the neat things about the big visual display is that it's configurable. The touchscreen has this little icon where you can decide what you want the display to look like. You can put up the current weather, the music that you're listening to, all the data of your current trip that you're on, the tire pressure, all kinds of stuff. It's actually pretty easy to do, but we strongly suggest you only do it when you're at park. So for as big, super, and clean as the top screens are, the center screen, which is obviously lower, is very small and very compact. For example, we have all kinds of issues dealing with the climate system. These buttons are continuously shown on the bottom of the screen, but they're tiny. And you get these little pop-ups, certainly when it comes to heated seats, cooled seats, and you have to hit it just right. And it takes a while, it takes a beat before it actually gets going. So we're really not too pleased with this because, again, this is the screen that you're actually interacting with. So perhaps the worst offender in this whole small screen setup has to do with the way that you figure out where the vents are going to blow the air. Normally, in most cars, you can physically move a vent to put the air where you want it, but not in the Nautilus. No, you have to go through this icon here, which is in the general climate systems, and okay. I got it. Okay. I got it. Okay, let's start the home screen. Okay. And then you get these little icons that look like a little breeze going. And then you have to decide, do you want it on your body? Do you want to change it? No, I want it continuously motion. So the motion things means that it's going to go up and down and left to right. Anyway, this is very needlessly complicated. So looking at the Nautilus controls in a little bit more depth, here we have the gear select, traditional, park, reverse, neutral, drive, and low. Kind of looks like piano keys, but you have to tilt your head down in order to make the selection. You can't just kind of do it. Let's look at this oblong steering wheel. On the right side handles audio functions. On the left, cruise control. Most of the steering wheel buttons are unlabeled except for the cruise control button. And one of the things that we've noticed in kind of driving this car, living with it for a while, is that it takes actually 2 separate touches on these little touch pads to make anything happen. Say I want to advance the audio system to the next track. I have to hit the pad to bring up the selection and then hit the arrow button to actually make it happen. Lincoln certainly put a lot of effort into fit and finish. There's lots of nice soft touch surfaces around. There's lots of exposed stitching. There's matte wood around the mid dash and all the chrome tipped controls. And of course, this really fancy crystal volume button, which certainly stands out. It makes a very nice presentation and gives you an idea that maybe you're actually getting your money's worth here. We are kind of have mixed feelings about these seats. They're fairly comfortable, but a lot of drivers commented that they felt like more they were sitting on them than sitting in them. And by that I mean better designed seats have a deeper pocket and more aggressive bolsters that sort of hold you in place. The takeaway here is that the seats are kind of okay, but not awesome. So getting into the back seat, in fact, either the front or the back is really easy. It's an SUV, but it's not super tall off the ground. The front seat is actually configured to my driving position. I'm about 5'10", so you can see that even where I'm putting the seat, there's still lots of knee room here, lots of foot space, and it's also very kid-friendly because when you put your kids back here, especially if they're child safety seats, no one thinks that maybe sitting in the middle would be at all ideal, but take it from our own Dr. Emily Thomas.
Middle seats, I joke all the time, they're not made for actual humans. I don't quite know who they're made for. Sometimes I feel like I can barely belt one thigh in. I don't know who's supposed to sit there. I'm doing this new test for myself, which is, can I fit between my son's high back booster and my other son's forward-facing car seat? And so for this one, I can. And I can sit comfortably. I can buckle myself up, which is not common.
So now we're out driving on Consumer Reports test track. Driving position is actually an evaluation we do for all of our test cars. I don't mean to be harping on this particular subject matter too much, but yeah, we're back to the kind of weird oblong steering wheel. It makes it difficult when you have to make a lot of quick turns. You have to kind of shuffle, steer around here, and the weird positioning of the wheel just makes it feel really unnatural and something that most of us didn't care for at all. So all in all, this is a pretty nice vehicle that's marred by a few really critical things that take away from the driving experience. We're in the midst of doing all of our tests for the Nautilus. We have over 50 tests that we do here at Consumer Reports Test Track. And at the end, we'll really know if the Nautilus is gonna sink or it's gonna swim. For more on SUVs, check out consumerreports.org.